The massive alien ship appeared above Earth without warning. It was 3 miles long and shaped like a twisted crystal, glowing with purple light that hurt human eyes to look at directly. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Earth, defense ship Guardian, and watched the alien vessel hover over New York City like a dark cloud. "Sir, they're sending us a message," said Lieutenant Karen Bell, her fingers dancing over the communication controls. "It's being translated automatically, somehow." Jake nodded. 3 days ago, humanity had been alone in the universe. Now they faced their first contact with alien life, and Jake felt the weight of representing his entire species. He straightened his uniform and cleared his throat. "Put it through," he ordered. The main screen flickered, and suddenly Jake was looking at something that belonged in nightmares. The alien had 6 arms, skin like black metal, and 3 eyes that glowed yellow. When it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding metal mixed with wind through a cemetery. "I am Ambassador Krell Voth of the Galactic Council," the creature announced. "We have come to evaluate your species for possible inclusion in our civilization." Jake stepped forward. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison, representing Earth's Defense Fleet. We welcome this historic meeting between our peoples." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter, but it sounded more like a machine breaking down. "Your peoples? You are barely evolved from the beasts that crawl in your planet's dirt. We have watched your pathetic attempts at space travel. Your fusion rockets are toys compared to our exotic matter drives." Behind Jake, his crew exchanged angry looks. Lieutenant Bell's face turned red, but she kept working at her station. Jake forced himself to stay calm. "We may be new to space travel, but we're eager to learn and contribute to galactic civilization," Jake said. "Contribute?" Krell Voth's 3 eyes blinked in sequence. "What could you possibly contribute? Your technology is primitive. Your bodies are weak bags of water that die if the temperature changes too much. Your minds are slow and clouded by emotions." The alien touched something on his control panel, and suddenly, Jake could see other aliens behind Krell Voth. One looked like a floating jellyfish made of light. Another resembled a 10-foot-tall insect covered in silver armor. They were all staring at the humans like scientists examining bacteria. "We have observed your species for 50 of your years," Krell Voth continued. "You fight constant wars among yourselves. You poison your own planet. You cannot even agree on simple matters within your own governments. Yet you dare to think you belong among the stars with your betters." Jake felt his temper rising but pushed it down. "Every species has growing pains. We're working to solve our problems and unite as one people." "Unite?" The alien's laughter grew louder. "You have over 200 separate nations on one small planet. The Galactic Council governs 47 star systems with perfect harmony. We have eliminated war, hunger, and disease. We have transcended the biological limitations that still chain you to your animal past. On Earth's surface, billions of people watch the conversation through their screens. In military bases around the world, soldiers gripped their weapons tighter. In government buildings, leaders held emergency meetings. Everyone knew this moment would change humanity forever. "What exactly are you offering us?" Jake asked. Krell Voth's expression changed to something that might have been a smile on a human face, but looked terrifying on his alien features. "We are generous. Despite your obvious inferiority, the Galactic Council is prepared to offer you protected status as a tributary species." "What does that mean?" "You will mine asteroids in your system and provide raw materials to the Council. Your strongest individuals will serve as manual laborers on our construction projects. In return, we will protect you from the dangers of the galaxy and prevent you from destroying yourselves through your own stupidity." Jake felt like he had been slapped. Around him, his crew was barely containing their anger. Lieutenant Bell was gripping her console so hard her knuckles were white. "And if we refuse this generous offer," Jake asked, "then you will remain trapped in your tiny system until you come to your senses," Krell Voth said. The galaxy is a dangerous place for primitive species. There are threats out there that could wipe out your entire planet without even noticing. You need our protection, whether you realize it or not. Jake looked at his crew, then back at the alien. I need to discuss this with Earth's leaders. Of course you do, Krelvoth said with obvious contempt. Your species cannot make decisions quickly because you lack proper leadership structure. We will give you one of your weeks to decide. But understand this, Captain Morrison. The Council's patience is not unlimited. The communication ended, leaving Jake staring at a blank screen. Around him, his crew exploded into angry conversation. Did you hear that arrogant piece of trash? Lieutenant Bell snapped. Tributary species. They want to make us their slaves. Calm down, Karen, Jake said, but he felt the same anger burning in his chest. 3 hours later, Jake stood in a secure conference room in Washington, D.C., facing President Lisa Martinez and her cabinet. Also present was Admiral Lisa Park, the head of Earth's military forces, and Dr. Alex Turner, Earth's leading expert on theoretical physics. The offer is unacceptable, President Martinez said without hesitation. Humanity will not become servants to these aliens no matter how advanced they are. Ma'am, we need to consider the implications, said Secretary of State Bob Wilson. They clearly have technology far beyond ours. If we refuse, they might decide we're a threat. Dr. Turner leaned forward. Actually, I think we learned something important from that conversation. They're arrogant to the point of blindness. They dismissed our technology as primitive without really examining it. That could be a weakness we can exploit. Admiral Park nodded. I agree. Any enemy that underestimates you is giving you an advantage. The question is whether we can use that advantage before they decide to eliminate the problem. Jake looked around. The room at the faces of Earth's leaders. He saw fear, anger, and determination in equal measure. So what's our answer? He asked. President Martinez stood up. Our answer is simple. We thank them for their offer and politely decline. Humanity will make its own way in the galaxy. 2 days later, Jake found himself back on the bridge of the Guardian, facing Ambassador Krelvoth again. This time, the alien's expression was even more contemptuous than before. Have your leaders reached a decision? Krelvoth asked. Yes, Jake said. We appreciate the offer, but Earth must respectfully decline. We prefer to develop our own path forward. The alien was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was colder than space itself. Then you have chosen isolation. We are placing your system under quarantine. No human vessel will be permitted to leave your star system. We are installing defense platforms at the edge of your system to enforce this restriction. When you finally realize your mistake and beg for our protection, perhaps the Council will still be willing to accept your surrender. And if we try to leave anyway? Jake asked. Then you will discover why the galaxy fears the Galactic Council's technology, Krelvoth replied. Your primitive ships will be destroyed before they travel 1 light-year from your sun. The communication ended again, but this time Jake was smiling. Around him, his crew looked confused. Sir? Lieutenant Bell asked. Why are you smiling? They just trapped us in our own system. Jake turned to face his crew. Because they just made their second mistake. First, they underestimated us. Now they're giving us time to prove them wrong. Within hours, massive alien structures began appearing at the edge of the solar system. Automated defense platforms that would destroy any human ship trying to escape. But down on Earth, in secret laboratories and military bases, human scientists and engineers were already working on the problem. Dr. Turner had managed to record detailed scans of the alien technology during their visit. Now he studied the data with the intensity of a man trying to save his species. And slowly he began to understand that humanity's primitive approach to physics might not be as backward as the aliens believed. The galaxy had dismissed humanity as irrelevant. Soon, they would learn the price of that mistake. 2 years had passed since the aliens quarantined Earth, and the galaxy was burning. In the council chambers of Nexus Prime, Ambassador Krell Voth stood before the High Council and tried to explain how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. The chamber was a massive crystal dome floating in space, filled with representatives from dozens of alien species. The air shimmered with translation fields, and the tension was thick enough to cut. The Void Swarm has consumed 17 star systems in the past 6 months, announced Prime Counselor Vex Khan, a being that looked like living liquid metal in a humanoid shape. Our fleets are retreating on all fronts. What is your assessment? Of our defensive capabilities, General Thak Moore of the Korathan Empire slammed one of his 4 fists on the council table. The lizard-like warrior was covered in battle scars, and his yellow eyes burned with frustration. Our capabilities are failing. The machines adapt to our tactics faster than we can develop new ones. We need every ship, every soldier, every resource we can find. Which brings us to the matter of the quarantined species, said Counselor Zet Quinn of the Nexari. The tall, thin alien with silver skin and large black eyes gestured toward a holographic display showing Earth's solar system. The humans possess significant industrial capacity and population. Perhaps it is time to reconsider their status. Krell Voth's 3 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of agitation among his species. Counselor Zet Quinn, with respect, the humans remain exactly as primitive and worthless as they were 2 years ago. My latest reports confirm they are still trapped within their system, still fighting among themselves, still clinging to their obsolete technology. But their numbers, Zet Quinn pressed. 8 billion individuals. Even as simple laborers, they could contribute to our war effort. Simple laborers who would require constant supervision and protection, Krell Voth countered. The humans are emotional, irrational, and prone to panic. In a crisis like this, they would be more hindrance than help. Besides, they rejected our generous offer of protection. They chose isolation. Let them enjoy it. Unknown to the Council, this was not entirely true. Krell Voth had been filing false reports for 2 years, claiming that humanity remained subdued and contained. In reality, he had not bothered to check on Earth since installing the quarantine barriers. His arrogance prevented him from believing that any species he considered inferior could possibly surprise him. Meanwhile, on Earth, Commander Ben Hughes stood in a hidden facility beneath the Rocky Mountains and watched something impossible happen. The massive underground complex, codenamed Breakthrough Base, hummed with activity as humanity's best minds worked around the clock on humanity's most ambitious project. "Status report," Ben ordered as he walked through the main laboratory. Dr. Alex Turner looked up from a bank of computers, his hair disheveled and his eyes red from lack of sleep. For 2 years, he had been working 18-hour days trying to understand alien technology from the incomplete scans they had taken during first contact. "We're close, Commander," Alex said. "Very close. The aliens use something they call exotic matter manipulation. It lets them bend space-time in ways our physics said were impossible. But we've found a workaround." Ben raised an eyebrow. "A workaround?" "They use elegant solutions, perfectly efficient energy manipulation," Alex explained, pulling up a holographic display that showed complex mathematical equations. "But elegant doesn't always mean better. We can't manipulate exotic matter, but we can use brute force quantum tunneling to achieve similar results." Brute force. Alex grinned tiredly. "It's like the difference between picking a lock and kicking down the door. Their method is prettier, but our method works just as well if you don't mind using more energy." Across the lab, Captain Sofia Garcia was studying the prototype drive system that Alex's team had built. Sofia was a test pilot, one of the best humanity had ever produced, and she had volunteered for the most dangerous assignment in human history. "So this thing will actually get me through their barrier?" she asked. "The math says yes," Alex replied. "But Sofia, I have to be honest. We don't know what will happen to you when you tunnel through. The energy requirements are enormous. Your ship's systems might not survive the transition." Sofia shrugged. Then I'll fix them when I get to the other side. That's what engineers are for. Ben smiled despite his concerns. Sophia's attitude was typical of the volunteers who had signed up for Breakthrough Protocol. When faced with impossible odds, humans didn't give up. They got creative. "When do we test it?" Ben asked. "Tomorrow," Alex said. "If the test works, we'll have proof that humanity can break free from the quarantine. If it doesn't work, then we'll try something else," Ben finished. "We always do." The next morning, Sophia climbed into the cockpit of the experimental ship, Pathfinder. The vessel was small, barely large enough for one person, but it was packed with the most advanced technology humanity had ever built. Most of it was reverse-engineered from alien designs, but the crucial breakthrough was purely human engineering. "Pathfinder, this is Control." Ben's voice crackled through the radio. "Are you ready for the test?" "As ready as anyone can be for something that's never been done before," Sophia replied, running through her pre-flight checklist. "All systems green. Quantum tunneling drive is online. Remember, this is just a quick test. Jump through the barrier, take some readings, and come right back. Don't try to be a hero," Sophia laughed. "Ben, I'm about to attempt something that violates half the laws of physics. I think the hero part is unavoidable." She engaged the drive, and the universe exploded around her. For a moment that lasted forever, Sophia existed in a space between spaces where time moved sideways and gravity flowed upward. She felt her ship shaking apart around her, heard alarms, screaming warnings she couldn't understand, tasted colors that had no names. Then suddenly, she was through, floating in normal space beyond the quarantine barrier. Her ship was damaged but functional, held together by redundant systems and good old-fashioned human over-engineering. "Control, this is Pathfinder," she radioed, though she wasn't sure the signal would get through. "I'm alive, I'm through, and the stars look beautiful from out here." Back on Earth, Ben Hughes and Alex Turner stared at their instruments in amazement. They had done it. Humanity had broken free from its cage, but their celebration was interrupted by an urgent signal from the Deep Space Monitoring Station. Lieutenant Danny Park, no relation to the Admiral, was on duty when the readings came in. "Commander Hughes, you need to see this," Danny called out. "I'm picking up massive energy signatures from the outer rim. It looks like a battle, but the scale is incredible." Ben rushed to the monitoring station and looked at the data streaming across the screens. The signatures were enormous, the kind of energy readings that could only come from weapons capable of destroying entire planets. "How far away?" Ben asked. "Approximately 400 light-years," Danny replied. "But, sir, the energy levels are increasing. Whatever's happening out there, it's getting worse." Alex joined them at the monitoring station, his face pale as he studied the readings. "These aren't normal weapon signatures. Look at this pattern. It's too regular, too coordinated. This isn't a battle between two fleets. It's more like one side is being systematically destroyed." "By what?" Ben asked. "I don't know," Alex admitted. "But whatever it is, it's moving toward the galactic core. If it maintains its current course and speed, it'll reach populated space within the year," Ben finished. The three men stood in silence, understanding the implications. The galaxy was under attack by something powerful enough to destroy entire star systems, and the arrogant aliens who had dismissed humanity were losing badly. Meanwhile, in the council chambers, emergency session after emergency session was being called as the Void Swarm continued its relentless advance. The machines, for that was what they were, seemed unstoppable. They consumed everything in their path, converting matter into more. Machines, learning from every battle, adapting to every tactic. "We've lost contact with the hegemony of worlds," reported General Thackmore, his usually proud bearing slumped with exhaustion. 47 billion souls, gone in less than a week. "The outer defenses won't hold," added Admiral Yen Korth of the Etherian Collective, her psychic voice filling the chamber with despair. The machines counter our every move before we make it. It's as if they can predict our tactics. Prime Counselor. Vexcon's liquid metal form shifted nervously. We need new approaches, new strategies, something the machines haven't encountered before. What about hiring mercenaries, suggested Counselor Zet Quinn, or recruiting from the neutral systems? We've tried everything. Thak Mor replied. The machines adapt too quickly. They learn from every engagement and become stronger. Ambassador Krell Voth, who had been silent throughout the meeting, finally spoke. Perhaps we should focus our efforts on protecting the core worlds, abandon the Outer Rim and concentrate our forces. Abandon billions of citizens? Thak Mor snarled. That's your solution? Better to save some than lose all, Krell Voth replied coldly. Back on Earth, Captain Sofia Garcia had returned from her successful test flight and was debriefing with Commander Hughes and Dr. Turner. But their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from Admiral Lisa Park. Commander Hughes, report to the Pentagon immediately. The Admiral's voice was tense. We've intercept. The Sorthak system died on a Tuesday. General Thak Mor stood on the bridge of his flagship, Corathan's Fury, and watched through the view screen, as 3 billion of his people simply ceased to exist. The Void Swarm had arrived at the Outer Rim colony 6 hours ago. Now there was nothing left but empty space and the expanding cloud of metal debris that had once been a thriving star system. Sir, his communications officer said quietly, we're receiving emergency signals from the Yelthari colonies. The machines have changed course. They're heading for the Nexari trade routes. Thak Mor closed his eyes and tried to control the rage, building in his chest. In 6 months, the swarm had consumed 23 star systems. The Galactic Council's response had been to retreat, retreat, and retreat again. They were fighting a losing war with losing tactics against an enemy that learned from every defeat. Set course for the Nexari sectors, he ordered. Signal the fleet. We're going to make a stand. Sir, his tactical officer hesitated. The Council ordered us to fall back to the secondary defense line. The Council can go rot in vacuum, Thak Mor snarled. I'm tired of running. Meanwhile, in Earth's solar system, Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the newly constructed Defiant and looked out at the most impressive fleet humanity had ever assembled. 50 ships, each one built with everything humanity had learned from studying alien technology over the past 2 years. The ships were ugly by alien standards. Where Galactic Council vessels were sleek and elegant, human ships looked like flying fortresses. They were covered in armor plating, bristling with weapons, and packed with redundant systems that would keep them fighting even when half their components were destroyed. Admiral, Captain Sofia Garcia said from the helm of her new ship, breakthrough. All vessels report ready for departure. Jake nodded. It had taken months to convince Earth's government to authorize this mission. Breaking quarantine was technically an act of war against the Galactic Council. But the intercepted communications made it clear that the galaxy was facing extinction, and humanity could not stand by and watch civilizations die. Dr. Turner, Jake called to the scientist who had made their escape possible, are you certain your improvements to the tunneling drive will work on this scale? Alex Turner looked up from his instruments, his face showing the exhaustion of a man who had been working non-stop for 2 years. The math checks out, Admiral. We can punch through their quarantine barriers without being detected. But once we're through, we'll be in unknown space with no way home if something goes wrong. Then we'd better make sure nothing goes wrong, Jake replied. All ships, prepare for quantum tunnel sequence. We're going to find this war and see how we can help. Sir, Commander Ben Hughes spoke up from his position at the tactical station. What if the Council tries to stop us? We're still technically under quarantine. Jake smiled grimly. Then they'll learn that quarantining Earth was never about keeping us in. It was about keeping the galaxy safe from us. The human fleet activated their tunneling drives simultaneously, and 50 ships vanished from Earth's solar system in bursts of twisted spacetime. They emerged into chaos. The human fleet found themselves at the edge of the Corathan defensive line, where General Thakmor's forces were fighting a desperate battle against Void Swarm scouts. The alien ships were beautiful and advanced, but they were being systematically destroyed by black metal constructs that moved like living things. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Karen Bell from the communications station. "Look at the size of those machines." The swarm vessels were enormous, some of them larger than human cities. They moved through space with unnatural grace, their hull surfaces rippling like liquid metal as they adapted to incoming weapons fire. Energy beams that should have destroyed them simply splashed harmlessly off their adaptive armor. "Admiral," Sophia's voice came through the comm, "the Corathan ships are using long-range tactics. They're trying to stay back and pick off the machines, with precision strikes." "And losing badly," Jake observed. The alien fleet was being overwhelmed, their elegant tactics useless against an enemy that adapted faster than they could adjust. "Sir," Ben reported, "I'm reading massive damage to the Corathan flagship. Their shields are failing." Jake made a decision that would change galactic history. "All ships attack formation Delta. We're going in." "Sir?" Sophia's voice was surprised. "We don't have any obligation to help them. They're the ones who quarantined us." "Since when do humans need an obligation to help people in trouble?" Jake replied. "All ships engage the swarm." The human fleet dove into battle like wolves attacking a flock of sheep. Where the Corathan ships had tried to maintain distance and use precise tactics, the human ships charged straight at the enemy. Their weapons were crude compared to alien technology, but they hit with the force of hammers. The first swarm vessel to encounter human weapons recoiled in surprise. The machine intelligence had adapted to energy weapons, particle beams, and exotic matter projectors. But humanity's weapons were different. They used chemical explosives, kinetic projectiles, and plasma bolts powered by fusion reactors. The technology was ancient by galactic standards, but the machines had never encountered it before. Captain Sofia Garcia's breakthrough led the charge, her ship's armor taking hits that would have vaporized most alien vessels. The human ships had been built like tanks, designed to absorb tremendous punishment and keep fighting. "This is insane," she muttered as her ship shook under enemy fire. "But it's working." The swarm machines, confused by the humans' willingness to take damage in order to close distance, began to adapt their tactics. But adaptation took time, and time was something the humans weren't giving them. Commander Ben Hughes had transferred to the assault ship Hammer, and he was coordinating the attack with ruthless efficiency. "Garcia, take your squadron left. Try to flank that big one. Patterson, your group hits them head-on. Williams, cover our retreat route in case this goes bad." Captain Bill Patterson, commanding the heavy cruiser Iron Eagle, grinned as his ship's main guns opened fire. "Ben, you worry too much. When has charging headfirst into impossible odds ever gone bad for humans?" "Do you want me to answer that question?" Ben replied, but he was smiling too. On the Corathan flagship, General Thakmor stared at his tactical display in amazement. The unknown. Ships had appeared from nowhere and were engaging the swarm with tactics that defied all military logic. They were taking damage that should have destroyed them, yet they continued to fight. "Sir," his communications officer said, "the unknown vessels are transmitting on all frequencies. They're speaking galactic standard." "Put it through," Thakmor ordered. Admiral Morrison's voice filled the bridge. "This is Admiral Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Fleet. Corathan vessels, adjust your tactics. Stop trying to fight at long range. These machines adapt to your weapons patterns. You need to hit them hard and fast before they can adjust." "Earth Defense Fleet?" Thakmor's tactical officer looked confused. "Sir, there's no record of any species called Earth in the galactic database. But Thakmor was watching the tactical display, and understanding was beginning to dawn. The quarantined species, the primitives from the restricted system. Shall I order them to withdraw, sir? Are you insane? Thakmor roared. They're the first beings in 6 months to actually hurt these machines. All ships coordinate with the human fleet. Follow their attack patterns. The tide of battle began to turn. The Korathan ships, inspired by human tactics, abandoned their long-range strategy and joined the close-quarters fight. The combination of human durability and alien firepower proved devastating to the swarm scouts. But the real surprise came when Colonel Janet Rivers' Marines boarded one of the disabled swarm vessels. "This is boarding party Alpha," Janet's voice crackled through the comm as she led her troops through the machine ship's corridors. "We're inside the enemy vessel. The interior is some kind of adaptive metal. It keeps trying to grow around us." "Can you reach the core?" Ben asked from his command ship. "Working on it," Janet replied. The sound of explosions and weapons fire echoed through the comm. "These machines are tough, but they're not built to handle good old-fashioned human stubbornness." "Rodriguez hit that control node with the shaped charges." The explosion that followed was loud enough to rattle every ship in the battle zone. The swarm vessel shuddered, its adaptive hull flickering as critical systems failed. "Core destroyed," Janet reported. "The whole ship is shutting down." "Impossible," General Thakmor breathed. "No one has ever successfully boarded a swarm vessel. No one has ever tried ramming one with Marines in powered armor carrying enough explosives to level a city block," Jake replied. "Sometimes the direct approach works better than the clever one." The battle ended with the complete destruction of the swarm scout force. For the first time in months, a Galactic Council fleet had won a decisive victory against the machines. In the aftermath, General Thakmor found himself face-to-face with Admiral Morrison via holographic communication. The Korathan general studied the human with interest. Morrison looked ordinary by galactic standards, neither particularly large nor obviously enhanced, but there was something in his eyes that Thakmor recognized for. The news of the Korathans' miraculous victory reached the Galactic Council within hours, but the truth behind it remained hidden. In the crystal chambers of Nexus Prime, Ambassador Krell Voth read General Thakmor's report with growing confusion. "New tactical innovations?" he muttered to himself, studying the data streams. "The Korathans claim they destroyed an entire swarm scout force without losing a single capital ship. This is impossible." Across the chamber, Prime Counselor Vex Khan was addressing the emergency session with something approaching hope for the first time in months. "General Thakmor's breakthrough represents our first major success against the Void Swarm. If we can analyze and replicate his tactics, we might finally have a path to victory." "What exactly did he do differently?" asked Counselor Zet Quinn, her silver features reflecting the light from the holographic battle displays. "According to his report, he abandoned long-range engagement protocols and moved to close-quarters combat," Vex Khan replied. "He also mentions using unconventional boarding techniques to disable swarm core systems." Admiral Yen Korth of the Etherian Collective leaned forward, her psychic presence filling the chamber with skepticism. "Close-quarters combat against adaptive machines? That should have resulted in total fleet destruction. The swarm learns from every engagement." "Yet the results speak for themselves," Vex Khan countered. "Perhaps our tactical doctrine has been too rigid. Maybe we need to think more creatively." Krell Voth stood up, his 3 eyes glowing with indignation. "Counselors, while I celebrate any victory against our enemies, we must not let desperation cloud our judgment. The Korathans are excellent warriors, but they are not miracle workers. This victory was clearly a fluke, possibly the result of encountering damaged or malfunctioning swarm units." "Are you suggesting General Thakmor is lying in his report?" Zet Quinn asked sharply. "I am suggesting that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence," Krell Voth replied smoothly. Before we restructure our entire military doctrine based on one anomalous battle, perhaps we should verify these claims independently. Meanwhile, in the hidden depths of space, Dr. Alex Turner was making a discovery that would change everything. Working in the laboratory aboard Admiral Morrison's flagship Defiant, he had spent weeks analyzing the swarm technology recovered from their first battle. "Commander Hughes!" Alex called out, his voice tight with excitement and fear. "You need to see this immediately." Ben Hughes had been reviewing tactical reports when Alex's urgent summons reached him. He found the scientist hunched over a workstation, surrounded by fragments of black metal that seemed to shift and flow even while inactive. "What have you found?" Ben asked. Alex pointed to his analysis screen, which showed complex energy patterns flowing through the swarm material. "These machines aren't just randomly aggressive. They're being controlled by something. Look at these quantum signature patterns." Ben studied the display, trying to make sense of the swirling data. "I'm not seeing it, Alex. What am I looking at?" "Command protocols," Alex said, pulling up another screen. "Every piece of swarm technology we've recovered contains the same underlying control structure. They're all receiving instructions from a central source. Like a hive mind?" "More than that," Alex said, his face pale with the implications. "Ben, I think the entire swarm network is being directed by a single intelligence. Something massive and ancient, probably located in deep space between galaxies." Ben felt a chill run down his spine. "How do you know it's ancient?" "Because of this," Alex said, highlighting a section of code embedded in the swarm's quantum processors. "This control architecture is millions of years old. Whatever built these machines has been planning this attack since before most of the current galactic civilizations even existed." "Can we trace the signal back to its source?" Alex nodded grimly. "In theory, yes. But Ben, the source is located in the void between galaxies. Getting there would require traveling through thousands of light-years of swarm-controlled space. It would be a suicide mission, unless we had ships tough enough to survive the journey," Ben mused. "Our ships are durable, but not that durable," Alex protested. "The energy requirements alone would be enormous, and that's assuming the swarm doesn't destroy us long before we reach our target." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from Admiral Morrison. "All senior staff to the bridge immediately. We have a situation developing." When Ben and Alex reached the bridge, they found Jake staring at the main tactical display with a grim expression. Captain Sofia Garcia was at the helm, her face tight with concentration. "Admiral, what's the situation?" Ben asked. "Long range. Sensors are picking up massive swarm fleet movements," Jake replied. "It looks like they're massing for a major offensive. The target appears to be the Nexari homeworld." "How many ships?" Ben asked. "Over 3,000, Sophia answered. "It's the largest swarm force we've ever detected." Alex stepped forward. "Admiral, I need to brief you on my latest findings. The situation is worse than we thought. For the next 20 minutes, Alex explained his discovery about the swarm's central intelligence. When he finished, the bridge was silent, except for the hum of the ship's systems. "So you're telling me that this entire war is being orchestrated by some kind of ancient superintelligence?" Jake asked. "That's exactly what I'm telling you," Alex confirmed. "And if we don't find a way to destroy or disable that intelligence, the swarm will continue to adapt and grow until they've consumed the entire galaxy." "Then we need to reach that intelligence," Jake said decisively. "Sir," Sophia interjected, "with respect, that's impossible. Even if our ships could survive the journey, we'd be traveling alone through hostile space with no support and no way home if something goes wrong." Jake looked around at his senior staff, seeing the doubt and fear in their faces. But he also saw something else, the stubborn determination that had carried humanity through countless impossible situations. "Sophia, how long would it take to reach the Nexari homeworld?" he asked. "At maximum burn, 18 hours, she replied. "Then that's where we're going first," Jake decided. We can't reach the swarm intelligence if the galaxy falls before we get there. We help the Nexari hold their homeworld. Then we figure out how to save everyone else. Admiral, Ben said quietly, we're just 50 ships against 3,000. The odds are completely against us. Jake smiled the same smile that had worried General Thackmore. Ben, when have impossible odds ever stopped humans from doing what needed to be done? As the human fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Dr. Turner made one final discovery that would prove crucial to their mission. Hidden in the deepest layers of the swarm's command code, he found something unexpected, a vulnerability. Admiral, he called out as Jake was preparing to leave the bridge, there's something else. The swarm's central intelligence has a weakness. What kind of weakness? It's overconfident, Alex explained. The control signals it sends to its units assume that no enemy force could ever reach the source. There are virtually no defensive protocols protecting the intelligence itself. If we could somehow get to it, we might be able to destroy the entire network with a concentrated electromagnetic pulse. How concentrated? Jake asked. Massive, Alex admitted. The kind of energy output that would destroy most ships that attempted it. But not human ships? Alex hesitated. Our ships have redundant power systems and heavy shielding. We might survive the pulse, but it would be extremely dangerous. Jake nodded slowly. So we have a plan. First, we help defend the Nexari homeworld and buy the galaxy some time. Then we find a way to reach this ancient intelligence and shut it down permanently. Sir, Commander Hughes spoke up. What if Earth's government orders us to return? We're already in violation of our orders by being here. Then we ignore those orders, Jake replied without hesitation. Sometimes doing the right thing means disobeying the people who think they know better. As the Defiant and her sister ships jumped into hyperspace, heading toward what would likely be the largest space battle in galactic history, none of them knew that their actions were already causing ripples throughout the galaxy. On Nexus Prime, Ambassador Krell Voth was reviewing intelligence reports when something caught his attention. Deep space monitoring stations had detected unusual hyperspace signatures moving toward Nexari space. The energy patterns were unlike anything in the galactic database. Curious, he muttered, but dismissed the readings as sensor errors. After all, what unknown force could possibly be significant enough to matter in a war between the Galactic Council and the Void Swarm? In the Nexari home system, Admiral Kethzar was preparing his defenses when his long-range sensors detected the approaching swarm fleet, 3,000 ships all heading directly for his homeworld. He had 200 ships to defend 8 billion civilians. Sir, his tactical officer reported, we're also detecting unidentified vessels approaching from the opposite vector. Energy. Signatures are unknown, but they appear to be friendly formations. Reinforcements? Kethzar asked hopefully. Unknown, sir, but whoever they are, they're heading straight for the swarm fleet admiral. Kethzar had no way of knowing that help was coming from the species his government had dismissed as primitive and irrelevant. He had no way of knowing that 50 human ships were about to demonstrate why. Underestimating Earth had been the Galactic Council's gray. The Nexari homeworld of Kepler 442b was a jewel hanging in the darkness of space. Its silver cities gleamed like stars against the planet's blue oceans, home to 8 billion beings who had never known the horror of war. That was about to change. Admiral Kethzar stood on the bridge of the Nexari flagship Harmony of Logic and watched 3,000 void swarm vessels drop out of hyperspace at the edge of his system. His own fleet of 200 ships seemed pitifully small in comparison, but they were all that stood between the machines and his people. All ships! Defensive Formation Omega, he transmitted to his fleet. We hold them here, or we don't hold them at all. The Nexari were not natural warriors. Their civilization had been built on logic, efficiency, and peaceful cooperation. Their ships reflected this philosophy. Sleek, elegant vessels designed for exploration and trade. hastily retrofitted with weapons they had hoped never to use. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, her silver skin pale with fear. "The swarm is advancing in a coordinated assault pattern. Their formation is perfect. They're learning from every previous engagement." Kethzar nodded grimly. The machines had fought dozens of battles across the galaxy, adapting and improving with each encounter. They knew exactly how to counter Nexari. Tactics, Corothan aggression, and Etherian psychic coordination. This battle was already lost before it began. "Sir," the communications officer suddenly called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the unknown contacts approaching from Vector 7. "Put it through," Kethzar ordered. The main screen flickered, and suddenly he was looking at an alien, face unlike any in the galactic database. The being appeared to be organic, with pale skin, dark hair, and only 2 eyes. Most remarkably, it looked completely calm despite the approaching battle. "This is Admiral Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Fleet," the alien said. "Admiral Kethzar, we're here to help." "Earth Defense Fleet?" Kethzar's tactical officer whispered. "There's no record of any species called Earth in our databases." Kethzar studied the human admiral's face, trying to read the alien's intentions. "Admiral Morrison, I appreciate any assistance, but you're facing 3,000 swarm vessels with what appears to be 50 ships. This is suicide." Jake's expression didn't change. "Admiral, has anyone ever told you that conventional wisdom isn't always wise? We'd like to try something different." "What do you propose?" "We're going to hit them where they don't expect it," Jake replied. "Your ships are built for precision and efficiency. Ours are built to take a beating and keep fighting. Let us get their attention while you coordinate the defense of your orbital installations." Before Kethzar could respond, the human ships broke formation and accelerated directly toward the swarm fleet. It was the most insane tactical decision he had ever witnessed. Captain Sofia Garcia was piloting the New Horizon at the tip of the human spear formation. Her ship had been specifically modified based on Dr. Turner's research into swarm weaknesses, packed with experimental weapons and shielding systems that had never been tested in actual combat. "All ships, remember the plan." Jake's voice came through the comm. "We hit them hard, we hit them fast, and we don't give them time to adapt. Garcia, your squadron takes point. Hughes, bring your group in from the flank. Patterson, hold back and watch for surprises." "Roger that, Admiral," Sophia replied, her hands steady on the controls despite the magnitude of what they were attempting. "Beginning attack run now." The human ships dove into the swarm formation like meteors striking an ocean. Where the Nexari would have used precise, calculated strikes, the humans employed brutal, overwhelming force. Their weapons were crude by galactic standards: fusion-powered plasma cannons, nuclear torpedoes, and kinetic projectiles, but they hit with devastating impact. The first wave of swarm vessels recoiled in confusion. They had adapted to counter elegant energy weapons and sophisticated particle beams. But humanity's weapons were different: older, simpler, and completely unexpected. Commander Ben Hughes led his squadron in a flanking maneuver that would have horrified any military academy instructor. His ships absorbed tremendous damage as they closed distance, but their redundant systems and heavy armor kept them fighting. "This is insane," his tactical officer, Lieutenant Danny Park, muttered as explosions rocked their ship. "We're taking hits that should have destroyed us 10 times. "Over. That's the point," Ben replied calmly. "The swarm's weapons are designed to efficiently disable enemy ships, but they can't efficiently disable something that's built like a flying brick and too stubborn to die." Captain Bill Patterson's heavy cruiser, Iron Eagle, demonstrated this principle when a swarm energy beam tore through its main hull. On any other ship, such damage would have been instantly fatal. But human vessels had been designed with the assumption that they would be damaged, and the Iron Eagle kept fighting on backup systems and emergency power. "Hull breach on decks 4 through 7, his damage control officer reported. "Main engines offline, weapon systems at 60%. "Then we use what we have," Patterson replied. All remaining weapons target that command ship. If we're going down, we're taking them with us. But the real shock came when Colonel Janet Rivers led her Marines in boarding actions against disabled swarm vessels. The machines had never encountered enemies willing to physically fight their way through starship corridors, and their adaptive systems couldn't process the concept of biological beings using explosives and power tools as weapons. Boarding Party Alpha were inside the enemy vessel, Janet reported as her Marines fought through corridors that tried to reshape themselves around them. The ship's trying to seal us in, but we brought cutting torches. How's the resistance? Jake asked from the flagship. Tough but predictable, Janet replied over the sound of weapons fire. These machines are built for space combat, not close quarters fighting. Rodriguez, hit that control node with the plasma charges. The explosion that followed crippled the swarm vessel's central systems, causing its adaptive hull to freeze in place. Janet's Marines methodically destroyed the ship's core systems using techniques that no galactic military had ever considered necessary. Admiral Keth Zar watched the battle unfold with growing amazement. The human ships were taking damage that would have destroyed any Nexari vessel, yet they continued fighting with a tenacity that defied logic. Sir, his tactical officer reported, the human fleet has destroyed 17 swarm vessels and disabled 12 more. But they're taking massive casualties. How many humans have they lost? Kethzar asked. That's just it, sir. According to our scans, they haven't lost a single ship. Damaged, yes, but none destroyed. Kethzar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The human vessels looked like they had been through a scrap metal processor, yet they continued to function. It was impossible by every standard of galactic engineering. All Nexari ships, he broadcast to his fleet, coordinate with the human forces, follow their attack patterns, and support their assault. The tide of battle began to turn. The Nexari ships, inspired by human tactics, abandoned their cautious long-range strategy and joined the close-quarters fight. Their precise weapons proved devastating when combined with human aggression and durability. Dr. Alex Turner, monitoring the battle from the flagship's science station, was analyzing swarm response patterns when he made a crucial discovery. Admiral, he called out urgently, I'm reading massive energy buildup from the swarm command vessel. They're preparing some kind of superweapon. Jake looked at the tactical display and saw the largest swarm ship beginning to glow with ominous energy. What kind of superweapon? Based on these readings, it's designed to overload the quantum processors in all nearby vessels, Alex replied. It would disable every ship in the system, both ours and theirs. Then they could finish off the survivors at their leisure. Time to activation? 3 minutes, maybe less. Jake made another impossible decision. Sophia, I need you to get close to that command ship. Sir? Sophia's voice was strained as her ship shook under enemy fire. That thing is the size of a small moon. Getting close enough to matter would be suicide. Not if you're carrying Dr. Turner's electromagnetic pulse weapon, Jake replied. Alex, can your pulse disruptor shut down that superweapon? If we can get close enough to their command ship, yes, Alex said. But Admiral, the energy discharge would be enormous. Even our ships might not survive it. Then we'd better make sure it works the first time, Jake said. Sophia, you're our best pilot. Can you get us close enough? Sophia looked at her instruments, calculating distances, velocities, and the probability of survival. By any rational measure, the mission was impossible. But humans had never been particularly rational. Admiral, she said finally, I can get you close enough, but we'll have to punch through about 500 swarm ships to reach their command vessel. Then that's what we'll do, Jake replied. All ships, formation Delta 7. We're going. To ram our way through their line and shut down that superweapon. Sir, Commander Hughes's voice came through the comm. The other human ships are too damaged to keep up. You'll be going in alone. Then we go in alone, Jake said simply. Humanity didn't come this far to give up when things got difficult. The Defiant broke away from the main battle and accelerated toward the